everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I've got to say, I am so incredibly pumped to get into today's topic, even if it's, well, a little bit unsettling. We are going to unpack the hidden story of a completely invisible threat that might literally be hiding in our everyday food. It's this wild, microscopic world clashing with our macro world, and I promise you, it's going to completely change how you look at your next salad. So, just picture this for a second. What if that iceberg lettuce in your fridge looked totally perfect? It's crisp, it smells completely normal, no weird brown spots. But what if it carried a microscopic parasite that could cause weeks, and I mean weeks, of absolute misery? Well, that exact nightmare scenario is actually the driving force behind a massive outbreak investigation in the US. Thousands of people got sick, nearly 100 ended up in the hospital, and the main suspect was something we literally eat all the time without a second thought: shredded iceberg lettuce. Section 1. The Strange Life of Cyclospora. Now, usually when we talk about food poisoning, our brains instantly go to bacteria, right? The usual suspects like E. coli or Salmonella. But Cyclospora is absolutely not a bacterium. It is a microscopic parasite, Cyclospora chiatinensis to be exact, and its primary target, your small intestine. Because it's a parasite, it has this completely bizarre, almost alien life cycle that is so different from your standard run-of-the-mill stomach bugs. And honestly, its journey is just wild. It starts by leaving an infected person's body in their feces. But here's the crazy part. If someone were exposed to that freshly passed Cyclospora, they actually wouldn't get sick right away. It's not immediately infectious. It literally needs to sit out in the environment for days or even weeks to mature. Only after that waiting period does it actually become infectious. From there, it hitchhikes on contaminated water or soil, lands on some fresh produce, and eventually finds its way right back into a human digestive tract. Section 2. What happens in your body? Okay, so we know how it sneaks onto the food, but what happens when you actually swallow it? Well, spoiler alert, it is miserable. This is not one of those quick 24-hour I ate something bad stomach bugs. Once Cyclospora sets up shop in your small intestine, it is incredibly draining. The main calling card is just relentless watery diarrhea, but it brings the whole squad with it. Severe stomach cramps, horrible bloating, gas, nausea, and just a total loss of appetite. And because it drags on for so long, people end up dealing with extreme fatigue and pretty noticeable weight loss. But you want to know the absolute most frustrating part? It plays tricks on you. The illness doesn't just run a normal straight course. You might actually start to feel better, thinking, okay, finally, I'm over it. And then, bam, the symptoms mysteriously come right back. It creates this totally exhausting roller coaster of sickness that can literally linger for weeks or, honestly, even longer if you don't get it treated. Section 3. The 2026 Taco Bell outbreak. To put this all into perspective, let's look at a real-world case from July 2026. 1,947. That is a massive number. By late July, the FDA had logged almost 2,000 people sick with Cyclospora, who all had one thing in common. They'd recently eaten at Taco Bell locations across 9 different states. Almost 100 of them had to be hospitalized. Investigators worked backwards and found the epidemiological link pointed straight to shredded iceberg lettuce, specifically tracing it back to a supplier called Taylor Farms de Mexico. This whole thing triggered a massive voluntary recall of iceberg lettuce across the US. But, every good mystery has a twist, right? At one point, the FDA tested a lettuce sample, and it popped positive for the parasite. Case closed? Nope. The lab experts later realized it was actually a false positive. So does that mean the lettuce was actually totally safe? Well, no, not quite. The FDA came out and said, look, this one false positive lab test doesn't invalidate all the other evidence. The epidemiological data, the traceback of who ate what and where, still pointed a giant glowing arrow right at that shredded iceberg lettuce supply chain. So they kept pushing forward with the investigation anyway. Section 4. Why tracing is so hard. So why is it so incredibly tough to find the exact source of a foodborne illness like this? Well, a foodborne outbreak is definitely not a standard crime scene. Detectives can't just throw up some yellow tape and dust a lettuce leaf for fingerprints. By the time epidemiologists even realize thousands of people are sick, the primary evidence, the contaminated food itself, is long gone. It's already been chopped up, tossed with other stuff, served to thousands of people over several days, and, eaten. Think about how complex our food system is. The agricultural supply chain is just this massive, vulnerable maze. Investigators literally have to work backward through it. They're asking, okay, what did these sick people eat? Where did those specific ingredients come from? Do these different restaurants share a supplier? And the contamination could have happened literally anywhere. Was it the irrigation water at the farm? Did it happen during harvesting, processing, while it was sitting in a truck or in the restaurant kitchen? Trying to trace a completely invisible parasite back through all those steps to find one common source is just a monumental puzzle.
Section 5. What you need to know.
So, where does this actually leave us? Let's talk about some real actionable takeaways, because the goal of this explainer is to dial down the fear and just turn up the awareness. Here's a huge point of confusion. Normally, we're told to wash our veggies, right? But if a product is officially recalled for contamination, washing it really well and eating it anyway is a huge mistake. Actually, scratch that, it's downright dangerous. What you absolutely must do is throw that recalled lettuce away immediately. Don't risk it. And make sure you sanitize any containers or cutting boards it touched so you don't accidentally cross-contaminate your other food. Also, if you're feeling sick, please don't try to play internet doctor. You absolutely cannot diagnose Cyclospora just by Googling your symptoms because, let's be real, diarrhea can be caused by about 1 million different things. You need specific laboratory testing to actually find this parasite. So if you've got symptoms that just keep lingering or coming back, especially if you know you ate recalled food, you really need to go speak with a healthcare professional. The good news? There is treatment for this. You definitely don't have to just tough it out. And I really want to make this crystal clear. Just because this happened, it absolutely does not mean all lettuce is dangerous. You don't need to panic every single time you see a vegetable. That's not the takeaway here. It's just about staying aware. Pay attention to those official recall notices, and just be an advocate for your own health if you ever have weird symptoms that won't go away. We've dug into the incredibly strange life of this parasite, the massive detective work it takes to track it down, and exactly what you can do to stay safe. But it really leaves us with this one lingering question as we wrap up this explainer. Think about it. Would you have ever suspected a lettuce if you suddenly developed weeks of diarrhea?